Hare Krishna. Welcome to another evening in the lives of the Vaisnava Acaryas. My name is Chaturatma. It's a great pleasure to be back after being away for 5 weeks, 5 Mondays I believe it was, while I was in India visiting and doing pilgrimage in Vrindavan and Karoli, Jaipur and Rishikesh. And so now we've returned. I hope that many of you didn't get bored and tired and leave us while I was gone, and that we're all back here speaking about the Vaisnava Acaryas again. Tonight what we're going to do is something a little different, and actually something very different from what we've done in the past. I want to speak tonight about Vrindavan. And I want to speak about Vrindavan because it is a central connecting point in the life of all the Vaisnava Acaryas we've spoken about. They either lived in Vrindavan most of their life, or studied in Vrindavan, or trained other devotees in Vrindavan, or at least at the minimum visited Vrindavan. And so Vrindavan is a very integral part for each of their lives. And so what I'd like to do tonight is there's a common activity when one stays in Vrindavan called the Vrindavan Parikram Marg. And this is the activity of circumambulating the town of Vrindavan. And as one does this, one comes across a large list of holy places and sites that can inspire one. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to go on Vrindavan Parikrama. I'm going to start and go around Vrindavan verbally and descriptively to the best of my ability and share some of the experiences. One of the nice things about Vrindavan Parikrama is that there are different times of day one can do it, of course. Many devotees, they have their morning breakfast and they go out and they go on Vrindavan Parikrama. I see we have a couple of old friends here in the chat room, Bhakta Scott and Mauricio. Hare Krishna Prabhus, nice to have you back. Nice to be back. Actually, I'm the one that went somewhere. You guys have been here all along. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. So, the nice thing about Vrindavan Parikrama is that the opportunity is there to observe this activity any time of the day one likes. For myself and others that I was associating with, we found that going early in the morning was the best time. The best time for me for a number of reasons. First of all, it's a great way to chant your japa. You have a very focused, concentrated, uninterrupted. It takes about 2 hours, a little bit under 2 hours, a little bit over 2 hours, depending on your pace, time to be able to chant. And if you go early in the morning, as I was prone to doing, there's no one else on the path. Most of the times I went, it was between the hours of 4 and 6. Quarter to 4, quarter to 6, like that. And usually I might run into 6 or 10 people on the entire parikrama path. Now, of course, what's happened in recent years, when I first started going to Vrindavan and doing the parikrama path, it was a beautiful sandy path that went all the way around the town of Vrindavan. Now, of course, it's a black-topped vehicle route that goes around. So the later in the day you go, the more vehicle traffic you run into. So this is another reason why I like to go very early. It's a nice japa period. It's a nice quiet time. There's not many other pilgrims. And you also don't run into vehicles. Now the exception to this rule would be the final Ekadasi of the month of Kartik. The month of Kartik we just passed through. And that final Ekadasi you will have by 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you will have no less than several thousand people already on the parikrama path. And by 10 o'clock in the morning, you've got upwards of 100,000 people doing the Vrindavan Parikrama, because this final Ekadasi is either, depending on whether you have followed Chaturmasya and Kartik Vrata, starting from Ekadasi to Ekadasi or from Purnima to Purnima, is if it's Ekadasi you follow, then it's going to be your last day. And if it's not, it is nonetheless the most auspicious Ekadasi in the year. So it's packed. And even at, as my daughter and I experienced, because I was in India this trip with my daughter and partially with my son, both of whom are adults. And we were there on this particular Ekadasi, and even at 4:30 in the morning it was already very busy. So, but most of the time by 4:30 you still have a very quiet, peaceful atmosphere. So that's what I'd like each of you to do that are tuned in and listening in, or that may be viewing this at a later date than we broadcasted. Take a moment and try within your mind, within your heart, to imagine Vrindavan as a very quiet and peaceful place, as a opportunity to rise early in the morning and fix your mind on the pre-day sounds of Vrindavan as we proceed. The starting place that we're going to begin, there are many different places one can begin Vrindavan Parikrama, and depending upon where one lives or depending upon what one's purpose is, one will start accordingly. The place that I was staying, once I came out of the property and made a left and just walked a few feet down the road, I was at the Parikrama Marg at a place called the Krishna Balaram tree. Now, the Krishna Balaram tree is a pair of trees that have been growing there for a very, very long time. At least for myself, as long as I've been going there since the early 70s. It's two trees that are intertwined. One is dark and one is light, and that's why it's called the Krishna Balaram tree. And devotees come and circumambulate this tree, offer their obeisances, and continue on. So this is where we're going to start. This tree is very, very beautiful. It has a small raised cement platform around it that is tiled very nicely. And pilgrims come and they pour water on the tree, or they touch the tree or embrace the tree. Many pilgrims embrace the tree and then offer obeisances. Traditionally, when one begins the Vrindavan Parikrama, from wherever one begins, one offers dandavats and prays for the blessings of Srimati Vrindadevi, the personality of Vrindavan, to please bless them on the Parikrama and allow them to have the right mood. So, starting at the Krishna Balaram tree, we'll begin our Vrindavan Parikrama. Once we go just a very short distance, on the right we will see two fields, and these are the last of the open fields of Ramanreti. Ramanreti, of course, is the place where Srila Prabhupada decided to establish the Krishna Balaram temple. And in the late 70s, the mid-70s, when Srila Prabhupada bought this land and established this temple, people in Vrindavan thought he was crazy. It was so far outside of the town of Vrindavan. No one will ever go there, they used to say. But, and of course, surrounding the area were vast fields, and these were the fields of Ramanreti, where Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys would play in the silver sands. And I remember in the 70s you would find peacocks in huge abundance in these fields right behind the Krishna Balaram tree. So you're walking down the Parikrama Marg, the Parikrama path, and just to your right, huge fields of beautiful silver sand and tamal trees and kadamba trees growing and peacocks profuse. And of course now there's only two small fields left, and they're brick fenced off, and everything else has been developed around there. But these are the fields of Ramanreti, and one can imagine Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys enjoying their daytime pastimes in these fields. So we walk just a little bit further, and the road makes a little curve to the left, and at that curve in front of us is a large building going up. And that building is being built under the direction of His Holiness Giriraj Swami, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, who was very famous for his service to Prabhupada in Bombay. And it's a hospital. And this hospital will be there to assist and treat the residents of Vrindavan, particularly at this end of Vrindavan. The only other hospital in Vrindavan is on the Mathura Road at the other end of town. So this is a building that's under construction, so we walk past that. The road curves again just slightly in the opposite direction, and there's a nice little distance down till we get to the Parikrama Marg. When we come to the Parikrama Marg, we make a right-hand turn. Now, to the left, not really very visible, and that's the whole point, are some hidden gardens. And these gardens extend back quite some distance. And these gardens are fenced off. They have high boundary walls around them. And these are the private personal gardens of many of the temples in Vrindavan. At least 2 temples I know of have property back there. And they grow there different flowers, and banana trees grow there with banana fruit. And we have papaya growing in profuse amount there. I had the good fortune with my dear friend Seisha one day of taking a shortcut through there and getting somewhat lost, but in a very blissful way, in those gardens back there. And they're very, very nicely done. Very nice. So this is just to the left. But if we make a right there, the Parikrama Marg begins. And whether we envision it as the current road that it is, or as the sandy path that it was, this is the area that the Jamuna River previously flowed on. It's a very common thing with all rivers that over the course of decades that they change the course of their flowing. And such is the case with the Jamuna over the last 5,000 years. So this current Parikrama Marg is an area that used to be the riverbank of the Jamuna. So as we go along here, we'll find many different things. Now, this is the north side of the Vrindavan town, where the Parikrama Marg is going there. We go along this path, and the first thing we notice, there's 2 very, very large trees. And these 2 trees, very commonly at this hour of the morning, are filled with bats. They sleep in these trees. They're very big trees. And once the sun comes up, I guess they have somewhere else they go. I never inquired about that, but I have seen them on a number of occasions. So just shortly after this, walking through here, we come to the beginning of the boundaries of the Bhaktivedanta Goshala. Just prior to the Bhaktivedanta Goshala on the right-hand side are some very, very beautiful landscaped gardens with a multi-tiered, I think this is about 5 levels, multi-tiered waterfall, and all done in very nice river stone and landscaped and laid out very nicely. This was all built by my dear friend who lives here in Alachua, Achyuta. He did this back in the 80s, and it's a very nice landscaped garden area, very, very beautiful. And this is kept up, and it's at the far north end of the Bhaktivedanta Goshala. And the Bhaktivedanta Goshala is at an interesting place. The place itself, because this used to be the bank of the Jamuna, is called Gogat. And it's called Gogat because back in the time of Krishna, this was the place where Nanda Maharaj would go to give his cows in charity. When he had an occasion to give cows in charity, this activity was performed at Gogat. Now it mentions that at this place, and this happens to be where the Bhaktivedanta Goshala is, that at this place, if one cares for cows or gives cows in charity, it is very easy to enter into Goloka Vrindavan. So very, very nice. Very, very nice. So from here we walk a bit further, and we encounter various different buildings of personal residence and some ashrams there. And a little bit further we come to an area called Varaha Ghat. And of course Varaha Ghat, this has something to do with the pastimes of Lord Varaha. I am not clear about that. I wasn't able to find that information. It's a wonderful area because recently the Jamuna flooded just this year. And the Jamuna River has been known to flood all the way up to this area in past years too. My friend Dhruva Maharaj was telling me that one of the years that he lived in Vrindavan, they actually were jumping off the boundary walls at the Goshala and at Varaha Ghat right into the Jamuna River, which is very rare that it actually gets that deep. So at various places as we walk along this path and throughout the entire Parikrama Marg, we find that there are pumps, public pumps and fountains and water spigots that are placed here by the government, by the municipality government. And these are used by the residents for their bathing, for collecting their drinking water, for all of their needs, because many of the homes in Vrindavan do not have running water, even to this day. So especially down in this particular section of Vrindavan. So these public pumps that you'll see at all hours of the morning, people are there bathing, cleansing themselves before their day begins, and then collecting the water. And this is where you see the girls with 2, 3 pots stacked up on their head, very comfortably walking and chatting with each other with these pots up there, just like the gopis. So this is a very, very nice thing you'll commonly see all throughout the Parikrama marg. Shortly after that, we come to the very famous Kaliya Ghat. Kaliya Ghat is the place where there's this very, very large Kadamba tree that is over 5,000 years old. And previously, this Kadamba tree actually reached out over the Jamuna River, and we all know the wonderful story of Krishna and the Kaliya serpent, and how Krishna jumped from that tree into the Jamuna River to chastise the Kaliya serpent. We won't tell that whole story. It will never make it all the way around the Parikrama marg. So that same exact tree is still there, and you can see as you get close to it, a very, very old and withered and weathered tree. Very big, and it's still growing very wonderful foliage, but you can see certain parts of it that are very, very old, that it is manifested new growth from. There is currently a group of devotees that are undertaking a very significant restoration project in Vrindavan of many of these different ghats, and they're currently working on Kaliya Ghat. They have propped up the sagging branch of this tree and dug down into the underground to open the ghat back up and then refill it with water so that it has the actual appearance of being a bathing ghat again. So there's one particular pujari, an old Baba that lives there and takes care of this area. So you'll see all of this right there. Now, a couple of the things that we'll see on this Parikrama path will not always be the pastimes of Krishna. For instance, right at the end of the section where Kaliya Ghat is, then just across the street we have the water purification plant that was put in by the Japanese government to purify the drainage water from the town of Vrindavan before it goes into the Jamuna. Not everyone knows this, but this was a plant that was put in at the expense of the Japanese government to help with the restoration efforts of purifying the Jamuna water, the Jamuna River. So this is also right there. If we go down a little bit further, there's a very, very wonderful restoration project going on called the Tamal Krishna Goswami Memorial Park. This is obviously being done by disciples of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And they're refurbishing some of the ghat steps that are there, and the different little mandaps that are there, and planting some trees along there like that. So it's being very widely worked up. This is going on in a lot of places in Vrindavan along the Parikrama marg. There's restoration efforts like that. Just a little bit further down, and we come to a very, very wonderful place. This is the Madan Mohan Temple. Madan Mohan Temple has several aspects right there. After Krishna chastised the Kaliya serpent, when he came out of the water, he was a bit cold. So he climbed to the top of the hill that the Madan Mohan Temple was on, and 12 suns appeared in the sky to warm his transcendental body. So this place is called Surya Ghat. This is the place where Surya appeared, and it's at the top of this steps up to the Madan Mohan Temple. Now, in previous times, and in previous times related to my life, when I first started going to Vrindavan, this was a very run down and very neglected area. But the Indian government, the proper parliamentary government, has decided this is a place of heritage, a pilgrimage heritage. And so they have put significant money into complete restoration of the Madan Mohan Temple, including landscaping and redoing the steps and tuck pointing all the brick walls. So everything has a very, very... And in addition, to put up fencing and cow gates to keep the cows and pigs and other animals from getting in and destroying the gardens that are there. So it's a very, very nice effort. So this is the place of the temple of Madan Mohan, the deity of Sanatana Goswami. This is also the samadhi of Sanatana Goswami. His samadhi residence, samadhi mandir is there. And then, as I mentioned, this is Surya Ghat. So all three of these things are combined there. If we go a little bit further past the Madan Mohan temple, we come to what's called Advaita Vat. Advaita Vat is the place where Advaitacharya, when he visited Vrindavan, discovered the deity of Madan Mohan. You remember the deity of Madan Mohan was established by Brajanab, the grandson of Krishna, and when many of these deities were established, they were hidden at the time of the Muslim attacks. And so in later years, different devotees were able to uncover these. Madhavendra Puri, Sanatana Goswami here uncovered Advaita Acharya, he uncovered the deity of Madan Mohan, and left that deity there under the care of Damodar Chobe. And then there's a whole pastime about how the deity decided to leave Damodar Chobe and come to stay with Sanatana Goswami, even though Sanatana could only offer him some dried chapati balls as his daily prasadam. So, in this way, these different deities began to be reestablished. As we pass this area, also this is an area where all the rickshawwallas live. We call it the Rickshawville. Many of the residents of Vrindavan that drive a rickshaw for a living have their residence down in this particular area. If you go there at this hour of the morning, you'll see all the rickshaws lined up outside their houses. Excuse me, I'm adjusting to a later time scale. So you go along this area now for quite some distance, probably about almost a full round of japa, and then and you have buildings on both sides. The rickshaw residences on the right, and some different buildings and grain storages on the left, and like that. And then all of a sudden the buildings on the left stop, and you get your first sighting of the Jamuna River. The Jamuna River at this point is still a bit of a distance away. And as the Jamuna River begins to flow towards the city of Vrindavan, this is the place where you first begin to see it. And in the early morning, it's very, very mystical, with a nice mist coming through it, and coming off the Jamuna and onto the banks. And things begin to open up a bit there, and you can feel the cooler air from the Jamuna River flow into the Parikrama trail. I'm going to just take a second here and acknowledge, say hello to the devotees that have joined us in the chat room here, along with Scott and Mauricio. We've got Vrindavan, and then we've got Nityananda Chandra. Nityananda Chandra, is that the Nityananda Chandra from Dallas? No, yes, Nityananda Chandra from Dallas. Very wonderful devotee. And then we have Dilip Rajkumar, I remember him. Benevolent Bear, I don't recognize you. Please, if you don't mind, drop us a line, tell us where you're from. And Bhaktin Carol, also Bhaktin Carol seems to be new as well. So we have some new people that have stopped in here. Bhaktin Carol, I see, she's from Dallas, okay. Alright, and the rest of you, thank you very much for joining us tonight. As you've gathered, we're doing a little different format. We're taking a verbal parikrama of the wonderful town of Vrindavan. So, let's continue on. We've just gained our first sight of the river Jamuna. And at this point, we begin to find a number of ghats appearing on the right. The first of these is Andira Ghat. Andira Ghat is the place where Krishna would play hide and seek with the gopis. They would take a piece of cloth and tie around one gopi's head, and then the others would hide in different parts of the ghat, and she would have to find them, or whoever was bound like this. So this is the place called Andira Ghat. Now, most of these ghats currently do not really exist in the form that they would have previous times. They're simply, it's understood this is where this place was. Shortly after that, we come to Imli Tala. Imli Tala is a beautiful tamarind tree that is 5,000 years old. And this is one of the places where Krishna's Rasa dance takes place. And during the Rasa dance, Radharani leaves the Rasa dance party. And Krishna goes to find her. He realizes that she's left, and he goes to find her. And he comes to this tamarind tree, and he sits underneath this tamarind tree, and in separation begins to chant the name of Radha. And as he's chanting Radharani's name, he begins to take on the color of her form. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange. Radharani is golden colored. So Krishna, feeling that separation from Radha, begins to chant her name and takes this golden form. And so Radha and the gopis come to look for Krishna, and they see him in this form. And they inquire, "Dear Lord, we've never seen you like this." He comes back to his sham form, to his darkish rain cloud form for them. And he says, "I was feeling your separation very much. In the Kali Yuga, I will incarnate in a form for the purpose of understanding that separation." And so this is the indication of the coming of Lord Chaitanya. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the Kali Yuga, he went to this Imli Tala tree, and he sat underneath it when he visited Vrindavan and chanted the names of Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, chanted the names of Radha and Krishna, and remembered these pastimes. And in so doing, he took on the color of Krishna, the bodily luster of Krishna. So this is a very famous place, and very, very beautiful. Previous years, the temple there has been very nice, very clean, but very, very simple. And this year when I went, I was quite surprised. It's been 2 years since I was in Vrindavan, and the entire place has been completely renovated. Beautiful, large altars have been put up, and the deities have been moved to very nice altars. And the Imli Tala tree, the original tamarind tree, has very nice area, and a new tamarind tree is growing from that same place. And they've put up wonderful dioramas all around the inside of the temple compound, depicting the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. And a beautiful entranceway with an archway and a dome over it. Very, very nice. So this is a very beautiful place to visit along there. So a little bit after that, continuing back out to the Parikrama Marg, we see that the Jamuna River is becoming more clear, and we can begin to hear some of the early pilgrims there taking their morning bath in the Jamuna. And just a few short steps away, we come to Shringar Ghat. Shringar Ghat is a place where Krishna would decorate Radharani's forehead with jeweled tilak and place different jewels in her hair. This is Shringar. This means to dress, to decorate. So Shringar Ghat, this is where Krishna would do this activity. And this is also a place where when when Nityananda visited Vrindavan, before he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, when he had left home and then was traveling like this, when he came to Vrindavan, he rested at this place and began to take up the mood of Lord Balaram. So this all took place at the Shringar Ghat. So continuing on, a little bit further down there, continuing on, we have what's called Chiragat. Now this Chiragat is the place where Krishna rested after he killed the Keshi demon. The Keshi demon we'll talk about a little bit later. That's a couple of ghats down. But after he killed the Keshi demon, he rested at this place. Now there's another Chiragat, which is the place where Krishna stole the gopis' clothes. That's not to be confused with this one. Although at this place they do have a tree with the deity of Krishna and cloth there, and many pilgrims come and tie cloth there. This is not the actual place where Krishna stole the gopis' clothes. It's a place where he rested after killing the Keshi demon. And this is also a place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rested when he was doing Vrindavan Parikrama as well. Now, along this particular section of the Parikrama path, there are 4 or 5 different places where one can cut off to the right and take side streets that will bring one into the town of Vrindavan. At these places, one can slip into these side paths and visit the temples of the Goswamis, because the majority of the Goswami temples are in this area. We've already spoken of Madan Mohan, which was back up the path a bit. In this area, one can take a side trip and visit the Radha Damodar temple. This is the deity of Radha Damodar and the place where Srila Prabhupada lived. One can also visit the Radha Shyam Sundar temple. This is just around the corner from there. A little further down, there's another cutoff where one can actually go to the Radha Raman temple, which is right up the street from the Radha Gokulananda temple, which is right around the corner from the Bamsi Gopal temple, which is where Srila Prabhupada lived before he came to America. So when one goes down the Parikrama path, one can continue, but each of these cutoffs are there if one wants to go up and visit these places as well. Now, at this point, we're beginning to come very close to the Jamuna, and the sounds of the ladies taking their morning bath is very prominent. This is one ladies' bathing ghat, and mostly this is the older widow ladies, and they're all there in 10s, 20s, 30s, like that, and they're all taking their morning bath and cleaning themselves and preparing themselves for the day's worship. And just before there, on the right-hand side, is a Shiva temple, a small Shiva temple. And many of them, after they finish their bath, they come up and they circumambulate the Shiva temple and pour water on the Shiva lingam. There was a particular group of 5 ladies that every morning I would pass and exchange Jai Radhes with them, and they were on their way to worship Lord Shiva. Very, very nice. Now, just after this place is where all the boats that traverse the Jamuna River are lined up. Some of these boats are very simple, and some of these boats are very elaborately decorative, painted vehicles for traversing across the Jamuna. Very, very beautiful. And at this hour, of course, there's no one on them, but this is where they're all kept. And one can see all these things. Then just a short little walk through the dark, because at this point the buildings are finished. Keshi Ghat is just about to begin, but there's a distance between there which is all dark. And it's a very quiet and peaceful area. There's no lighting. One has to have a flashlight if you're in the early morning. And then we begin the Keshi Ghat complex. The Keshi Ghat complex extends for quite some distance, and these were in their time grand palaces that were lived in by kings and businessmen right on the bank of the Jamuna. The Keshi Ghat is the only ghat that is still touched by the waters of the Jamuna River regularly. Sometimes the Jamuna will flood to some of these others, but the Keshi Ghat is the only one that still has water there all the time. And the water moves very swiftly. And there are different walkways up and into different parts of the Keshi Ghat complex and some of the residences there. And then there's a section that opens up with steps down into the Jamuna. And at this place one can stop, and there's quite a lengthy area. One can walk back and forth and chant rounds. This place, as the sun begins to rise, I spent a couple of mornings stopping my parikrama there and chanting my japa there. And at that time of the morning, once the sun comes up, it becomes proliferated with monkeys. So many monkeys. And as many of you may know, the monkeys of Vrindavana are very mischievous. So one morning I was there, and one older sadhu had come to take his offer his respects to the Jamuna. He wasn't there to take bath, but to give some offerings to the Jamuna. And as he was walking down the stairs come, the side wall of the stair comes closer and closer to head height. And there was a monkey perched there. And this monkey perched out and grabbed the sadhu's glasses. And monkeys are famous for this. And what they do is when they get your glasses, they demand some kind of food in exchange before they give the glasses back. But what happened was that the monkey had a baby monkey on its belly. And as it grabbed the glasses, 3 or 4 of us saw it and screamed and yelled and, raised our hands, hollering. And the monkey got scared, and the baby got particularly scared and fell off the mother's belly and fell into the Jamuna. Now, it's a banks there, so it quickly got itself back out. But this completely scared the mother, who scampered down to save the baby, and they both went off. So at this point, we all just assumed that, we ran down a bit to find that particular monkey, and it had no glasses. So everyone just assumed that the glasses had fallen into the Jamuna, and that was the end of it. But I thought, wait, I didn't see them fall. And I leaned over the edge of the steps there, and you could see there was a little ledge, and the glasses had gotten caught on that ledge. So I was able to get those glasses, return them to the sadhu, and the sadhu blessed me and put his hand on my head very thankfully. So these are some of the pastimes that Keshi Ghat these days. In previous times, Keshi Ghat was the famous place where the Keshi demon came to disturb all of Vrindavana, and Krishna chastised him very severely by putting his hand into his mouth and controlling him, just like one puts a bridle into the mouth of a horse to control them. So this is a very, very nice place. And just at the end of the Keshi Ghat, before you turn back up to the parikrama path, there's a beautiful deity of Jamuna Devi. And pilgrims come every day, and they begin to worship, they begin their day by worshiping Jamuna Devi in this way, and offering their respects to her before starting off their day. Let's take a break here and take a look at our chat room and see what's going on here. Vrindavan's pointing out he's been to Keshigat and bathed there. That's very wonderful. Scott Prabhu, have you had the opportunity? I see you're also mentioning going there. Benevolent Bear is from California, and we've got some nice pastimes going on here. Brajbasi Seva, yes, yes. Well, we're going to let you all continue. Scott, you've got to come to Vrindavan next time we go. Yes, Manjesh also. Everyone should make a trip to Vrindavan once in their life. And the opportunity is easily available. And going to Vrindavan will give such a deep realization to your understanding of Krishna consciousness. This is a very important thing to do. So, we'll continue on here. Now, after the Jamuna Devi, one makes a right-hand turn and cuts back up into the main part of the Parikrama Marg. And there's a very, very large tree that's very old and has a very, very low branch. And one is required to duck underneath that branch to actually make it through there. This is a very significant place. This is about the 1/3 point of your Parikrama Marg when you get there. So, at this point, you make a left and you cross over a small roadway, which is the last opportunity to cut into the main downtown portion of Vrindavan. This would be the area where one would find the Radharaman temple and like that. The next thing is that one starts back up on the Parikrama Marg near the Jamuna River, and you begin what's known as the east side of Vrindavan. Excuse me. The east side of Vrindavan, the Parikrama Marg, was the last section to be blacktopped, and there are still some portions that have deep cooling sand on the side of it that you can still walk in. Along this area, everything becomes very quiet. The temperature becomes a bit cooler because what you're basically walking into now is just the Jamuna River banks. The distance between the Jamuna River and the Parikrama Marg begins to get much wider, and this is the floodplain of the Jamuna, and this is much of the agricultural land for Vrindavan. There are not very many buildings alongside here. It's very open with agricultural fields on to the left side, and to the right side very little is there. A few buildings here and there. And there's a bit of public lighting, street lighting put up by the municipal government, but mostly it's a very quiet, peaceful, and cool part of the Parikrama path. This is the east side of Vrindavan. So going along this area, this is actually, you go a bit further down, and it becomes what's known as the last section where you can cut in. And at this point, you can cut into Bamsibat, which is the place where Krishna held the Rasa dance. You can also cut into this area and go to see the Gopishwar Mahadev temple, which is the temple of Lord Shiva, who protects Vrindavan. And then at this same area, you can very easily get to the temple of Braj Mohan, which is the deity of Narottam Das Thakur. So if we go back out to the Parikrama Marg, very shortly we'll come upon the Jagannath Mandir. Now, years ago when I first started going on the Parikrama Marg, the Jagannath Mandir was a very simple, small temple with a very large courtyard, very, very large courtyard that they very meticulously did in cow dung. They covered the whole thing in cow dung, so it was a very, very nice, clean environment. And very simple, but very nice and clean worship was going on there. And in recent years, this temple has become very, very popular. They have deities of Lord Jagannath there. They also have a deity of Srila Prabhupada, because this temple is run by one of Srila Prabhupada's Gujarati disciples, who, for whatever his reason, separated himself a bit from ISKCON and has established a very, very nice temple, very, very appreciative of Prabhupada's efforts, and very nice worship, and it's become quite a big temple. And now when you walk by, there's this big entrance gate, just like in Jagannath Puri with the big decorative lions outside. Very, very nice Puri style. And so this is the Jagannath Mandir. after the Jagannath Mandir, one gets a very, very long stretch of maybe, I can only determine things in counting of rounds, but maybe 3 or 4 rounds worth of just walking peacefully. This is a section where one can really absorb himself into the holy name. There's not a lot on either side here. As I mentioned, there's agricultural fields. There is one section where there's a walled-off compound, and I don't know what's on the other side of this wall, but I know there's hundreds of monkeys that live in there, because you can hear them and they come out over the wall at different times of the morning. It's probably some type of fields or gardens or wooded area belonging to some temple or something. Now, just a little bit distance after that, on the right-hand side, we have what's called the Govardhan Zoo, which is an interesting thing that's appeared in Vrindavan in recent years. This was only started there in about the 80s. There's you go to the left and walk through walk over a bridge, which goes over what is meant to be a very large canal of water. And I have seen water in there on a couple of occasions, but usually it doesn't have any water. And then you go to the other side of this bridge, and there's this huge pile of Govardhan Shilas. They've been brought from Govardhan, very, very large ones, and placed here. And the resident pujari that lives there worships these Govardhan Shilas in a very nice way. Pilgrims come and circumambulate the Govardhan Shilas there in case they're not able to get to Govardhan. And then there's a zoo there. There's a large compound that has many spotted she-deer. It has large numbers of white rabbits. There are some antelope there. It's very, very amazing. I don't know who started and how it got started. There's a number of peacocks, and they're all in very large, penned-in areas, but quite sufficient for them to run about. So this is the Govardhan Zoo. I'm sure there must be a proper name for it, but that's all anybody knows it by, is the Govardhan Zoo. So we continue back out on the Parikrama Marg, and if we walk across the path a little bit further, then we come to this one old Baba that has a small temple there where he worships Govardhan Shila. Now this is a bit from the Govardhan Zoo, so it's not a part of that. And it's a small little temple, maybe the size of one's bedroom. And there's a Govardhan Shila. Excuse me, my apologies. There's a nice Govardhan Shila there. And this very old sadhu who wears nothing but a simple loincloth, long beard and a big pile of hair on his head, and does very nice worship for this Govardhan Shila. Now if we continue a little bit further, on the right-hand side of the Parikrama path, we'll notice a canvas tent, maybe like a regulation army tent. But this tent has all kinds of thorn branches laid across the top of it. And I came to find out the reason is this keeps the monkeys off the tent and any other kind of birds from lighting on it, because they don't like the thorny branches. And inside this tent lives one old sadhu. And he has nothing except what he owns inside this tent. And if you go by there, you'll hear him in there with his little pair of offbeat cartels chanting the Hare Krishna mantra at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I've been by it all 3 of those times, and he's in there all that time chanting. Very, very nice man. I've never met him. I've just heard him. So at any rate, this is part of the east side there. We continue down on the Parikrama Marg. As I mentioned, this is the area where we can really absorb ourselves in the holy name. Because, of course, the whole purpose of going to Vrindavan is to increase our remembrance of Krishna. And the Parikrama Marg is a very nice opportunity, especially in this section, because there's nothing going on. There's no distractions. You can hear off in the distance the sound of tractors beginning their morning activities, and you can hear some buffalo and some cows from the different goshalas along the way, and see the mischievous monkeys. But there's no buildings to speak of along here, and it's a very nice area to really get into one's japa. Now, after some time like this, we do start to see a few buildings, and one of these buildings is called Panigat. Panigat is the place on the banks of the Jamuna where the crossing was for Durvasa Muni's ashram. Durvasa Muni lived across the Jamuna on the other side. And so the gopis would go there to render service to Durvasa Muni because he's a very great sadhu, and of course they wanted to serve him. So when they went, they have to figure out how to get across the Jamuna. So they had been told by Purnamasi, when you go there, you say that Krishna is the strictest brahmachari. So they said this. And upon saying this, the Jamuna River parted. And they were able to walk through the banks of the Jamuna to the other side, and then she joined both sides again and continued flowing. So they went to Durvasa Muni's ashram, rendered the services to him. He became so pleased that he gave them each a blessing that they would be able to have Krishna as their husband. But he gave a specifically special blessing to Srimati Radharani. He was so pleased by her service that he blessed her that anything she cooked would be just like nectar, and that whoever ate that would live a very long life and be free from any disease. So this became very well known that she had this blessing, and for this reason Mother Jasoda would call her personally to cook every day for Krishna. So this is a very nice time. So once Durvasa blessed them and it was time to go, they said, but how do we get back across the Jamuna River? So Durvasa said, when you go, you simply make the statement, Durvasa Muni only eats durva grass. So they went and said that, and sure enough, the Jamuna opened and they went through. So this is the pastime at Panigat. Now, of course, the interesting thing is, neither of these statements are true. They've just fed Durvasa Muni this huge feast, and we know that Krishna coverts very freely with the gopis. So how is he the strictest of brahmacharis, and how does Durvasa Muni only eat durva grass? So at any rate, I don't know the depth of this pastime. It has a very esoteric meaning, I'm sure. But this is the place that this pastime takes place. It's called Panigat. So we continue down on the east side of Vrindavan. And I had the experience one of the mornings when I was going there. As I mentioned, this is a very remote area, and there's nothing but a few municipal streetlights. So one day when I went there, the entire eastern half of Vrindavan town was without electricity. Now, of course, at that hour in the morning, how do you know? But usually there's something. But the entire eastern side of Vrindavan was out of electricity that day. And there was a particularly thick fog rolling in off the Jamuna. So much so that even with a flashlight, I could barely see 5 or 6 feet in front of me. It was a very mystical experience going through the Parikrama Marg in this deep fog like this, and hearing, being able to chant, and then hearing the different sounds of Vrindavan surrounding you. Very, very nice. So next we come to the Mathura cutoff. This is a place, it's a junction where we begin to go now to the south side. And as we come to the south side, you can either continue straight, and then this path takes you on the Parikrama that goes all the way around Mathura, or you can make a right if you're only doing the Vrindavan Parikrama. So we're only doing the Vrindavan Parikrama today, so we're going to make a right-hand turn. Now, just a very, very short distance, not even a half a block after you make that right, there's a building on the left. Well, it's hardly a building. It's 4 brick pillars with a roof. And it's not very well kept up. But this is the site. It's called the Adi Badri Ghat. This is the place where Srila Vyasadeva sat when he wrote the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So pilgrims always circumambulate this place when they come by there. Now, at this point, we begin a slow and steady rise out of the valley of the floodplain of the Jamuna up into Vrindavan town. And the Parikrama path has a very steady incline to it. This is also a point to where buildings start to come in more along the roadside. There's different temples, there's different little shops, there's different ashrams, and these all begin to now crowd back up onto the roadside of the Parikrama Marg. And you'll see cows coming out of different residences. There's a couple of nice goshalas along there. And in this way, one begins to have the feel of getting back into the town of Vrindavan after having spent, probably a half an hour walking through what would be the agricultural fields with very little buildings around. Now one gets back into this main section. And after some time of walking like this, then we come to what's known as the Mathura Road. And this is the main road that runs through Vrindavan and connects Mathura and Vrindavan together. Now, just before the Mathura Road on the right-hand side is an interesting little, I hardly use the word building, but there has been a Govardhan Shila at that spot for many, 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 many years. And previously, that Govardhan Shila, which is quite large, almost the size of a small car, maybe not that big, anyway, it's a very big Govardhan Shila, had been just out in the open. And one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, I believe his name is Ramanath or Radhakanta, I can't remember his name, it's on a little plaque right there. He built a small little marble altar house. And it's maybe the size of a regular desk in your office or your home. And it's a little bit taller than a person is height. And the front of it's open, and there's a little arrangement where you can pour milk on this Govardhan Shila, and a little pipe comes out into a little container where you can get the Charnamrita out. So devotees always stop and they circumambulate this. And you have to be very skinny because it's built right up against the side wall where the boundary is for the Parikrama mark. And it's a tight squeeze. It's a tight squeeze. So we go around there, and then we cross the Mathura Road. And once we step into the Mathura Road, even at that hour of the morning, the traffic between Mathura and Vrindavan has already started up. Buses and auto rickshaws taking people into Mathura. So in this way, the energy is beginning to build up in the city of Vrindavan itself as we begin to finish our Parikrama mark. Now, after we cross that road, just a few buildings down is the Shiva temple. And this Shiva temple has one sadhu that every morning I went by was sitting there and reading from some shastra. I don't know what shastra it is. But every morning in front of the Shiva lingam, I would see him reading there like this. And so this is just on that section there. Now, we go a little bit further, and the road widens out and makes a turn to the left and then a jog back to the right. And in that left-hand corner is one of these public pumps, which I mentioned. And every morning I would see the same sadhu there taking his morning bath like that. He had a very long beard and a big pile of hair on his head, what's called a jat. Actually, coincidentally, this was the name for Krishna's, for Radharani's so-called mother-in-law, Jatila. Jatila was called Jatila because she had very long matted hair which was all piled up on top of her head. That's called the Jati. That's why they sometimes refer to them as Jati Sannyasi. So, at any rate, just a little side thing there. So, and at this place also, if you go later in the morning when the sun's well up, this place is overrun with hundreds upon hundreds of monkeys. And this particular kind of monkey is very, very mischievous. Very, very mischievous. So, we continue down this way, and on the right-hand side is a very remarkable temple that has been finished in the last 4 or 5 years. And this particular temple is built in a kind of a combination of Vrindavan and Thai, as in Thailand. And it's a very interesting temple. I haven't had the opportunity to go in it, but the structure is very unique to Vrindavan. You won't see another temple in Vrindavan like this. So we continue down this road for some time, and we come to the Vrindavan Railroad crossing. Cross over the railroad tracks, and just to the left is a very, very beautiful Radha Krishna temple. Now, I've been doing this Vrindavan Parikrama mark since the 80s, since the 70s. But in the 80s, there was a small little hall on the left there that had these most beautiful and exquisite marble Radha Krishna deities in it. Very, very simple little small building, and I would always stop and offer obeisances. And then I noticed in the late 80s, that this building was slightly bigger. Then when I went in 2001, it was a very large hall with the deities at the end. And when I went just this year, these deities have this huge, beautiful temple. Very, very elaborate worship and a very beautiful marble structure. So, very, very nice deities. Apparently, they're very well cared for and everyone likes them. Got a question coming through here. Let's take a quick look here. Can you give us the most numbers in any BBT book with a description of how all these places are revealed to the common man in Kali Yuga? Page numbers in any. Wow, Dilip Raj Kumar has asked a question about if I can give page numbers in BBT books where there's a description of these places. I cannot give page numbers, but I can tell you that these types of descriptions would be in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in some sections. But mostly these books are in the books of the Goswamis. In different descriptions of Vrindavan. The Bhakti Ratnakar has a very elaborate description of the different holy places in Vrindavan. I don't know of any particular BBT book where these descriptions are given. That would be something I'm just not familiar with. Chaturatma would know. Yeah, back up to your earlier statement in that regards, Dilip, it is a fact that Lord Chaitanya did instruct the Goswamis to write about these and uncover these places. This is specifically their reason for coming. And you're asking about how these holy places are revealed. One of the most famous ways, which was practiced by Lokanath Maharaj, as well as by Bhugarba Goswami, is they would either carry a deity around and the deity would personally tell them, here, this place happened, this is where this place happened, that's where that happened, or they would go through these different areas calling out the names of these holy places until they were able to understand this is where they were. These pastimes are discovered in the Bhakti Ratnakar, for one, about the devotees experiencing the holy places in this way. Very, very remarkable. Very, very remarkable. We have to remember that all these holy places, just like the places we're walking by on our transcendental Vrindavan Parikrama, these are all personalities in their own right. These are not just places where there's earth and mud there, but these are transcendental personalities who are there servicing and engaging and facilitating the pastimes of the Lord. And so they can reveal themselves to the devotees. This is certainly quite possible to be done. So, back to our parikrama. We're closing in on the end of the parikrama marg here. We have just passed this Radha Krishna temple, and then we go for about another round's worth of walking, and the parikrama marg takes a turn to the right, and we begin to walk on the west side, of the parikrama marg. And a short distance down, and we come to a road that if we take it to the left, this is the cutoff that would go down to the Sandipani Muni school. This is a school started by Rupa Raghunath of the Vrindavan Food for Life. And he has established the school with great, great success for educating the poor and underprivileged children of Vrindavan. The last count, I think they have 700 students in their school. Very, very professionally organized. First-class teachers, a lot of support comes from all over the world for his educational efforts there. Very, very nice program. Very nice program. So if we pass that, we continue on, and this is the home stretch, as they say. It's a very nice section of road, and just a short distance before we come to the cross of the Bhaktivedanta Marg, there's a well on the right-hand side. And this well is a very nondescript item, but if you lean over the well and yell out, Radhe Sham, and you hear your echo, the sadhus say this means your parikrama was successful. So everyone always, when they walk by this place, leans over and chants Radhe Sham into this well. So a very short distance after this, maybe a couple of 100 feet, we come to the most prominent road, not the main road, but the most prominent road in Vrindavana. That's the Bhaktivedanta Swami Marg. This is the road that runs into the heart of Vrindavan, and particularly runs past the Krishna Balaram Mandir, which is just a few short steps down from the Parikrama Marg where it crosses here. And this has become, as I mentioned in the beginning, when Srila Prabhupada built this temple out here, everyone in Vrindavan thought he was crazy because no one would ever go. And now this is one of the, good or bad, one of the most congested areas of all of Vrindavan. Many, many shops have popped up there, unlimited ashrams and residences and complexes for people to live have grown up there. And so much so has it become crowded that buses are no longer allowed into that area. They have to stop a few blocks down to the left of there, and people have to walk in. Buses just are not allowed to go in there. It's so crowded. So this is the Bhaktivedanta Swami Marg. Srila Prabhupada's, this main road was named after Srila Prabhupada many, many, many years ago. So if we pass that and continue on the Parikrama Marg, on the left-hand side, a few feet down, a little short distance, is what's called the Bhakti Ashram. The nice thing about this Bhakti Ashram is it's a ladies' residence. Many of the devotee women that are not of the means to afford living in some of the more expensive places that devotees have, or to buy their own place, can stay very comfortably and very protectedly in this place, the Bhakti Ashram. It's a women's ashram. Now, if we come down a little further, we come to a place that's in the common area known as Balaram Baba Row. Balaram Baba is a gentleman who lives in Vrindavan and has for many years. He has a number of disciples, but his main activity is the distribution of prasadam. 3 days a week he distributes prasadam to an unlimited number of sadhus. And this street that he lives on becomes lined with 300, 400, 500 sadhus. They come from all over Vrindavan and they're given free lunch. And then twice a week he has a grass compound very near his place down this same road, which is it's very, very large. It's maybe half the size of a basketball court, and it's filled up with maybe 1,000 people that he distributes prasadam to them. And then he has another arrangement where he distributes prasadam to children, and then on top of that, at the entrance there to his walkway, to his street, he has a man that sits out there with a big pot and serves out different types of halava or khichdi to pilgrims as they go by. So he's very well known throughout all of Vrindavan for his prasadam distribution. This is also the same street that many of our senior men in ISKCON have their ashrams on. That would be Bibi Govinda Maharaj, Shivaram Maharaj, Giriraj Swami, also Indradurna Maharaj has his ashram there. So many of them live in this area, and it's a very, very nice area. And the prasadam distribution that Balaram Baba does is all supported by donations he receives from all over. Very, very nice program. Now, if we go a short distance past Balaram Baba's street there, on the left-hand side is a temple that almost everyone that has ever gone to Vrindavan has overlooked. To this day, whenever I go to Vrindavan, I'll say to devotees, Prabhu, did you know this temple's there? And no, I didn't know that. It's a small temple run by some widow ladies. And inside this temple are, without a doubt, some of the most beautiful Gaurnitai deities you'll ever see in your life. They're neemwood deities with their hands extended out in front of them. And both of them have their hands like this. And this type of expression is, here's our mercy, please take it. Here is our mercy, please take it. Both Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are standing next to each other, both with very, very beautiful features, and both with their hands out like this. Please, take our mercy. And these deities are elaborately and beautifully dressed. Everyone I encourage to go and see that temple, they then go every single day because these Gaurnitais are so beautiful. And as my good friend Dhruva Maharaj said when I was asking him if he knew the name of these deities, he said no, but they are beautiful and very merciful. And this is true. And after we take the darshan of these beautiful, merciful Gaurnitai deities, we come back out onto the Parikrama Marg, and there in front of us is the Krishna Balaram tree that we started at some 2 hours ago. So this is the way that the residents of Vrindavan engage themselves in remembering Krishna by circumambulating the town of Vrindavan, remembering all the different pastime places that have taken place there, and chanting the holy name of the Lord while doing so. And in this way, all of the Goswamis that have been connected with Vrindavan have some place that they contribute to this opportunity for us to remember Krishna's pastimes there in Vrindavan. So this is our Vrindavan Parikrama for this evening. We've had a very, very nice time. We thank everyone. And let's just take a look here and see where we stand in the chat room. We were discussing about how the different holy places are revealed, how Lord Chaitanya revealed Radhakund. Actually, when Lord Chaitanya discovered Radhakund, it was 4 meters by 4 meters. Very small. Very small. 2 little puddles practically next to each other. And in due course of time, Jiva Goswami was instrumental. Actually, the first title of ownership for Radhakund, when it became a municipality, was given to Raghunath Das Goswami. He was the first mayor of Radhakund. But Raghunath Das Goswami was, how shall we say, a bit detached from worldly affairs. So the management of the town of Radhakund and of the Kund itself was given to his associate Jiva Goswami. And Jiva Goswami engaged the wealth of his disciples and other disciples in cultivating Radhakund to what we see it as today. Now, ever so many years they drain Radhakund and clean it all out and clean the steps and all. I've seen pictures of it when it's empty, and it's the most amazing sight. There at the bottom is this 4 meter by 4 meter brick container, a brick walled area, which is the actual source of Radhakund. Very, very deep. And whenever they do this, they always find so many amazing deities and shilas and things that have been placed into Radhakund over the years. So, there we go. Scott, Mauricio, Dilip, Vrindavan, Nityananda Prabhu, Benevolent Bear, we appreciate you all joining us tonight. Very nice to have you with us. We've had a wonderful evening of doing Vrindavan Parikrama. And now Jagat Karta. Jagat Karta has just popped into our chat room here. And Jagat Karta is an old godbrother of mine from St. Louis, who I haven't seen in many, many years. Hare Krishna, Jagat Karta. Okay, so we're going to finish here this evening. I want to thank all of you for joining in. I want to thank all of you for going on this Vrindavan Parikrama with me. And I'd like to remind all of you to join us next week on Monday night for another chapter in the lives of the Vaisnava Acaryas. Hare Krishna.